Okay, well, welcome to the show, Brandon Carlin.
Thanks, Jeff. Nice to meet you over video, and glad to be here.
Yeah, well, listen, I first thing I want to say is thanks for coming on, and I am super excited to have you on the show. Reason being is how I was introduced to you is very unique and different,
Yeah,
and we can laugh about it a little bit. But for everybody who doesn't know, Brandon, you went to college with one of my dear friend's sons.
yep.
And I had a conversation with him. He's like, you got to meet this young man. He's got a tremendous story. I know you're trying to help athletes, and he's got to get on your show. And I said, okay. I said, give me his number. Let's connect and we'll rock and roll. And and then that's how we met. So if you don't mind, tell the audience, your relationship with Wyatt, and
Sure.
your talk about what inspired you to play college sports and the value you got from it. And because this could help a lot of aspiring high school athletes. Hey, do I
Sure.
really want to play college sports? What's in it? Why did you want to do it?
Yeah. So I'll first take the former. So played college lacrosse with Wyatt. We were roommates, all 5 years of school. Both originally from the Northeast. I'm from Long Island. Wyatt being from North Jersey. So we originally met when coach said, hey, these are the guys coming to class, go pick a roommate. And we're all talking and whatnot, and then knew Wyatt was from Jersey, reached out to him, said, hey, you want to room together? Said would love to. So I thought that would be the end of it. We wouldn't speak until we got to the first day of campus. And he one day hits me up over the summer. He's like, hey man, would love to meet you before we get up to school. Would you be interested in coming to my grad party? So I told my parents, I was like, this seems a little crazy, but could be fun. And,
Party, let's go.
exactly. So he's like, bring your parents, bring a buddy if you want. So you're not, riding solo. And we went up there and we had a blast. I mean, I didn't want to leave, so met the Todds, of course, met Wyatt, and then, the rest was history. He's still to this day one of my best friends, and probably will be for a long time coming.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, the his dad and I go back a real long way,
Yeah.
and great guy. So it's college sports. What was the
Sure.
inspiration? What brought you to it?
Yeah. So, grew up in a very sport focused family. My dad played college football at Albany. My sister played college softball. So, was always around sports from a young age. And it wasn't really till I got older that, the multitude of sports I played, when I was younger, kind of, narrowed to lacrosse. But, I think growing up and knowing my dad played college football, knowing my sister was a great softball player and then eventually went to go on to play college softball, I knew that, that was something I also wanted to
Yeah.
do.
Where did
And it
your
was
sister play?
lacrosse that took me there.
Where did your sister play?
She played at East Stroudsburg in
Okay, good.
in Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Yep. Good for her. So college lacrosse. What's your most memorable moment there? What like this? If you can something stood out, what's the top memory you got?
Honestly, it's interesting to say, but it probably is going to come from a game we lost. So my junior year, we played our rival Tampa, probably the tightest we've ever played them at the time. We've beaten them since then, but never beat them. It was a game we lost by one. I think the score was 13-12, but it was my first game back to Tampa's field after tearing my ACL. So, it was definitely a lot of emotions going into the game, and it was the game I had scored the most points I've ever scored in a collegiate game. So to be back on the field after tearing my ACL and putting up a career high in points was definitely something that was most memorable for me.
How many points?
I had five. I had 3 goals and 2 assists against
Wow.
against our biggest rival. Was one I'll remember for a long time.
Well, you jumped right into another topic that I was going to ask you about, and you brought it up already: is injuries.
Yeah.
Right? Can you talk about injuries? Can you talk about the impact it had on you, not just physically but mentally?
Yeah.
What did it do to your psyche? How did you come out of it? What was the rehab like? And
Yeah.
what was obviously you came back and had your best game ever. But can
Sure.
you talk about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I tore my ACL in my first college scrimmage. which was a brutal way to start off the college career. Obviously just putting in so much work over the summer, going into college, that fall and whatnot, was probably slated to get some playing time as a freshman. The season definitely looked promising, and to go out there and blow out Many was definitely brutal. Especially knowing what is to come from an ACL injury. My dad's a physical therapist, so I've been around sports injuries for a while, and knowing how grueling the recovery process and probably what the rest of your playing career could look like was definitely would definitely weighed on my shoulders. But really hats off to my dad. Really, it was, I was definitely down in the dumps as when it happened, and he was by my side through the whole thing. Kind of just encouraging me, not letting me kind of look, think too much into the future. That can kind of that was probably my initial reaction, was like, what's the next year going to look like, and kind of just him, stressing to me, this is a day by day thing, and that's how I kind of took the recovery as well. It was day by day. So just day by day. The recovery itself was brutal. I mean, I was probably in the gym at 6:30, every morning, getting my rehab in, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is, and then right to class, and then still attending lacrosse practice. It was almost like you're doing additional things when you get hurt, right? Because I'm still a part of the team.
Yep.
So I'm still an athlete, I'm still a student, and now I'm also trying to recover as well. So it was almost a three-headed beast you had to take on. But just it was a grind. It was a grind day in and day out. But was able to come back in 6 months, which I think is probably the earliest you're able to get cleared from a doctor, and the rest was history from there. So never
Well,
really never looked back.
can we go deeper into those 6 months?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, it's tough, because you're relearning how to do everything. At first, you're relearning how to walk. Once you get surgery too, I mean, you're pretty much, you can't really move. You're bedridden. I mean, I was on the couch on that machine that extends your leg in and out for hours on end, and it's tough too, because you still want to have a life. I remember those early mornings going in to see the athletic trainer, maybe after a night out, and maybe I was walking around too much that night, and my knee's a little bit swollen in the morning, and she's like, all right, we got to get that range of motion in, so we're going to bend that extra hard. So it's tough, but you kind of, being at practice, staying involved with the team and being at practice kind of gave me something to work towards, because you're itching day in and day out to get out there again.
Yeah.
Unfortunate, but also fortunate for me at the same time. One of our, me and Wyatt's best friends, Wes Johnson, kid is he's a freak. He's an athletic freak. He actually, when he was done playing lacrosse, went to go walk on at University of Kentucky's football team. He's a freak, and he tore his PCL at the same time as I tore my ACL, and he's got one of the best work ethics I've ever seen, for whether it be on the athletic field or off the athletic field. So we would push each other day in and day out. And that was like, Wes was also part of like an external motivation that helped me get back there.
That's great. So 6 months of rehab.
Yeah.
There's a lot of athletes out there right now that are hopefully listening to this, right? And that are in the midst of some injury, some rehab, or they have a fear it might happen.
Sure.
When in your rehab did you see the light at the end of the tunnel? Like, hey, you know what? This is really starting to work. I'm getting my range of motion back. I mentally think I can make it on the field again. Like,
Sure.
How far into that 6 months did it go?
I think about the halfway mark is when you're cleared to begin running. And I think that's when everything was like, wow, I'm there again, because at first, right, I mean, learn to walk, you just start weight bearing, you start lifting again, whatnot. And once you get cleared to run, you're like, man, okay, I'm there. I'm there. Man, you feel a little goofy at first. You definitely feel like a baby deer, but I'd say, once I felt, okay, I'm getting it. I feel normal again.
Good. Because there's a lot of guys that are out there that might be just got injured.
Sure.
And they're wondering, like, how long is this going to take?
Yeah.
When am I going to be back? Or can I come back?
Yeah.
So was there a point in your time in the very beginning of that rehab where the doctors are like, hey, Brandon, like, I don't know if you're going to get back on the field? Or were they 100% sure, hey, listen, we're going to fix you. You're going to go and be ready to rock?
Yeah, there was nothing but positivity and that kind of glass half full outlook during my rehab. And again, I've seen it so many times. You always see guys. I was always thinking of Adrian Peterson when he tore his ACL and came back and rushed for 2,000 yards. There was always that thought of hey, other guys have done it, so can I, type thing.
Yeah. So going back to your college experience, right?
Sure.
How did that contribute to your personal growth while you're in school, right?
Yeah.
And helped you through it. And then you got out of school. What did you take from being an athlete into your, obviously you're still a young guy,
Yeah.
into your professional life, your personal life when you moved on?
Yeah, I always say that whether I'm speaking with kids in college that are looking to get into what I'm doing or just looking for advice or whatnot, I always say that like being a student athlete is the most transferable thing into the professional world. Because right off the bat, I mean, you are trying to do what everyone else is doing in half the amount of time, right? So they're just regular students, and then can go on with their days and whatnot. You're all right, I got lifts, I have conditioning, I have practice, I have film, I do it all that, and then you still got to be a regular student. So time management, organization, um you know being within the team, leadership, those are all the things that I think you get from being on a team or playing collegiate athletics that are just so transferable into whatever you're going to do post college.
That's a great point, Brandon, because what I have found over the years since I've been out of school, long time, is that, there's two types of college athletes that graduate.
Sure.
One who follows the system, the structure, the discipline, the format of what you've been taught into their professional life, and they absorb it and they live by it and they thrive on it.
Yeah.
Then there's others who run from the structure. They don't want the structure. They didn't enjoy the structure. And they end up going into a completely different direction.
Yeah.
And if they would only just stick to it and follow that system, they would be in a much better place.
Yep. No, completely agree. And the structure was great for many things, especially as a freshman coming into to college, because there's a lot of free time out there, and that's college is a kid's first taste of freedom as well. So getting in sort of a structured atmosphere really is you're going to get used to what it's like out of into the working world as well, right? You have meetings, you got to get this done by this time, so it kind of gives you a good taste of what's to come and gets you used to it and gets you kind of on a straight path.
It's awesome. So let me ask you about athletic identity.
Sure.
Okay. When you're on campus and you were there for 5 years, you got your master's down there?
Yeah, I got my master's there.
That's awesome. So 5 years on campus, college athlete in sunny Florida.
Yeah.
Right. Talk about that. What's that like to walk around campus knowing you're one of the guys that are really bringing athletics to the school? And then talk about, okay, you played your last game, whenever that last game was, you took your lacrosse helmet off for the last time.
Sure.
Talk about that and how that mentally affected you, your personal and athletic identity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think from identity standpoint as an athlete, one of the things I'll take it from two sides. That I will say that you're always going to have a target on your back, because you think about it, right? You're out there representing the university, right? So anything that you do off campus is a direct reflection of the university. So that is a challenge. I will say the first part, it is a challenge being an athlete, a student athlete, because the spotlight's on you. With that said, on the flip side, what you do is a direct reflection of the university on a positive note, right? So a big win, a conference championship, a school record, that is an accomplishment that you had that is reflective of, that reflects on the university as well. So I think it's, it is it is how you approach it. It's a glass half full, glass half empty type
Yeah.
thing. So that's something I know that, a lot of people struggle with, at first, is that, hey, there is a spotlight on you at all times. So, it could be a positive spotlight or it could be a negative spotlight. So that was definitely a something to get used to, when you actually get to university.
Okay. So when you took that helmet off for the last time, how was that?
Bittersweet, definitely bittersweet, in the sense that, you know, that's the last time I'm going to play in a really competitive lacrosse game. Still run around in men's league what is, but it's a different feeling for sure. But I will say I had no regrets. When I took off that helmet for the last time, I had no regrets. Sure, there's games you look back on and, man, I wish I did this, I wish I did that type thing. But at the end of the day, I was satisfied with my college career. Lacrosse was a great game that gave me so much, that at the end of the day, I was grateful to have played the sport. I was grateful to have played in college, but was fine tying up the cleats.
What's it like to play a sport with that physicality in that type of heat
Sure.
in Florida?
Yeah, it's grueling. It's definitely grueling, but I will tell you that when it's January, February, and
It's
I'm not in
nice.
sweatshirt and sweatpants, running around practice, I'm in a t-shirt and shorts, and we're going on a boat after. It's not too bad.
I can only imagine. I can only
Yeah.
imagine. So how do you think, college sports, you've been out of school for how long now?
Oh, since 21.
Oh, so you got to think about that. Such a long time ago, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For me, I got to say, what year was that?
Yeah,
1987. That's what? Almost 40 years ago. Oh my
sure.
God. But, how do you think playing college sports is going to impact not just now, like how you're working professionally, but your future? What do you think is going to, how it's going to impact your future 20, 30 years from now?
Yeah, I think that just because athletics, I always say it's just so similar to, really, I'll say, like the business world. Knowing how to work in a team is so crucial. You understand, how to be empathetic, I want to say, or tailor, you know tailor, how you say things or what you're saying to different people. So I think that's so valuable when working in team in the professional environment. And leadership. I was a captain my last year. I was a captain throughout high school. Always, whether I was a captain or not a captain, always kind of, I'm a vocal person, outspoken. So, was always sort of a vocal leader, whether I had the title or not. So, I think that I have an inept ability to be a leader, and through that, always, kind of, came into that role, and I think guys looked up to me, and just from that, I was able to transfer it into what I'm doing now, and hopefully in years to come when I'm in a more senior position.
Great. So I'm going to go backwards a little bit.
Yeah,
We're gonna bounce back and forth, current and future, right?
yeah,
But you went through some pretty rigorous times, physically in college.
yeah,
And like you said before, then you went into the rehab
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
You still got to go to class. You still got to have fun. Like, tell the young people listening that are in high school now.
yeah.
Juniors, seniors in high school. They have this aspiration, this vision, this desire, this want to play a college something, right?
Mhm.
you know Talk to them about managing the physicality of having to go to practice, go to games, along with, well, you got to go to class too. You got to balance that. How did you balance that type of physicality, beating up, soreness, getting up, going to class, and then having a function in class, and then go home and do homework, and then
Sure.
get up tomorrow morning and do it all over again?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's how you approach it. Uh, you know, Luckily, early on, I approached, what you just said, in a get to attitude instead of a want to, and instead of a have to attitude. I get to go to practice. I get to go to lifts. I get to go to class type thing. So there's, you know, I've realized that I was fortunate enough to be in the position that I was. So, I kind of always try to take the approach of, hey, I'm lucky enough to be able to do this, I think that with that attitude and that approach on things, you looked at maybe like a 6 a.m. lift or a late night practice kind of as something you got to do, you were lucky enough, you were fortunate enough to do, rather than, something that's as grueling as it could be seen on the surface of things.
I mean, that's a great attitude. Now,
Yeah.
let me ask you this. You weren't born with that. Somebody
No.
had to influence you. Where did that
Yeah.
influence come from?
Yeah, it was my dad. It was my dad. He always stressed, that to us from a young age that, you know, hey, you guys are in a good position because, like you get to do this, right? A lot of kids aren't in the same position as you. So, you just got to be fortunate with what you have. And kind of, he was always a preacher of leaving no regrets. And I think part of that was kind of just appreciating what you have and kind of being in the moment type attitude.
Right. What
Yeah.
position was he on the football team?
He was a wide receiver.
All
He was
right.
a
So
wide
he's
receiver.
fast. So he's
Yeah,
fast.
he was fast. He was actually, he always says if he was faster, he would have been in the league. But he was a high IQ, smaller guy. He also says if the slot receiver was a thing back then, that he would also be in the NFL. That's a lot of ifs, but no,
Yeah.
he was a great player. I
That's
think
that's
his high
awesome.
school Hall of Fame, college Hall of Fame, he's an All-American in college, so definitely had a successful career.
That's great. When did he graduate?
He is 58.
All right. Probably graduated in 88 or 89.
88 is the year he graduated.
Okay. All right.
88.
Too bad we didn't play them. I would have been covering them.
Yeah.
That would have been fun. So let's talk about the team for a second. Let's talk about camaraderie. Let's talk about the bus rides. Did you guys take any plane rides or no?
Our
All
spring
right.
break trip was always to
All
the
right.
Midwest.
So plane rides, but let's talk about the camaraderie of how the team either helped you when you're down
Sure.
mentally, how did they pull you out? Or when you saw somebody on the team as a captain, right?
Yeah,
You gotta find these guys that are having some down days. You got to pull them out, right?
sure.
So talk about how the team helped you when you
Yeah,
were down in your let's say the valley of despair is what I call it, right?
sure.
And then as a captain, how did you and you saw a guy, what did you do to pull them out of their valley?
Sure. I think, it almost came very natural. And I always wished I could put myself in another team's shoes and saw how they, were with each other on the field and off the field. But I'll vividly remember my first one of my first days at school. One of my best friends now, Evan Shimmick, was an All-American defenseman at Rollins, and was walking around with him and kind of just asking about, hey, what's the relationship with the guys, on and off the field. And I'll never forget this. He said, these will be your best friends for your time here and most likely for the rest of your life. And I truly believe that. I mean, like, there was nothing, more I wanted to do after practice than hang out with the guys that, we were just beating on for the last 2 hours. It was really fantastic, the relationship that, we had with each other at Rollins. And, I don't know if that's, just a Rollins thing or it's everywhere, but, I guess, when you're with these guys day in and day out, for hours on end, you have no choice almost. It's a natural thing to get so close to these guys. And, when you truly care about a group of people, to back to your question, when you truly care about a group of people, I think it's just human nature, right? If we see a guy down, try to care for them, especially when, you're that close with someone or vice versa. So, I think it was just the amount of time we spent together, just kind of created that bond that you had with one another. So it was almost like an innate ability.
And for those who are just listening, I can see Brandon's face, and as soon as you start talking about this stuff, that your face lights up,
Yeah.
the smile on your face. I'm sure
Yeah.
you go into different names and different faces and different memories, and you're
Sure.
thinking, it's just the traditional student, for lack of better words, no disrespect to them,
Yeah.
they don't understand that.
Yeah.
Now they might, if they were high school athletes, they might feel a little bit, and stuff like that. But it's when you get to the college level, the intensity is turned way up,
Yeah, absolutely.
and that physicality is turned way up.
Yeah,
That mental stress is turned way up.
yeah,
And so when you're bonding with these guys, it's like you can't explain it. That's
yeah,
all I say. You just can't explain it.
yeah, yeah. These guys are there for your ups. They're there for your downs as well.
Yeah.
So it's a wild roller coaster ride, and everyone's
Yeah.
along for the ride. So it's a it's an experience for sure. But I think that college athletics creates a bond with many people that will probably last the rest of your life.
Great. So as a captain, right?
Sure.
There's other captains out there right now playing college sports, and they might not know how to handle something.
Yeah.
What advice can you give current captains around, hey, you see a player, you see a teammate, you see him down, what advice can you give them to handle that situation?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's just trying to, relate to that guy. You were in their shoes, at a point in time. It always, from a younger guy's perspective, I thought it was the coolest thing when the upperclassmen were kind of taking me under the wing or giving me advice, making an effort to talk to me, coach me up and like that. So, I think it's just about putting yourself in their shoes and trying to relate. And I think that as you progress throughout your career, you're definitely able to, relate to pretty much everything that one guy is going through, at a point in time. So, I think it's just kind of like reflecting on your career, putting yourself in their shoes. Hey, what would I want that guy when I was a freshman to tell me? And kind of just using that to kind of give advice, I think was super helpful for me. And I think anyone who is maybe in a leadership position, in college athletics.
It's tough to remember those days, right? When you're at, let's say you grow up to your fifth year, you're the captain, you're the guy, and it's hard to put yourself in their shoes.
Sure.
It's hard to say, okay, I got to relate to this guy, but
Yeah.
that's what leaders have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
They got to
Absolutely.
figure out how to get in their head,
Yeah.
and pull them out of wherever they're dealing with.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think that, from myself, you had to throw your ego out the door, right? There's some swag or pride that comes, with being a captain. Guys look up to you, but it can be taken in two ways. Guys get power hungry with it. But it's just, and I've seen it firsthand, but it's the approach of, we're all equals. It definitely goes further and probably has more of an impact as well.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. So let's stay. I'm going to keep staying in the past for a little bit.
Sure.
Meaning, talk about the mental stress, right? When you were in high school, I'm guess you were one of the better guys on the team, if not the best.
Yeah.
Talk about the transition from high school to college. Now you go to college, your coach recruits you. Hey, you're the man, you're the man, you're the man, you're the man. You're going to play. You show up there and everybody's just as good as you,
Yeah.
if not better. You're
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, this is not what I was expecting. How
Sure.
am I so good? Am I going to compete here? Can you talk about that transition from high school to college, and then how you dealt with that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's Jeff, that's a great question. It made me laugh because I always see every summer. I think it's the funniest thing ever. You watch clips from Alabama summer ball. Everyone's a 5-star recruit pretty much, and they're walking around practice with tape on their helmets with their last name on it. And you're like, these guys are 5-star recruits, and they're it brings them back down to earth a little bit. But you made a great point. I mean, when you get there, the competition is real. Everyone, no spots guaranteed. Everyone's kind of on that same playing field, and everyone's good. Everyone's really good. So that was an eye opener for me. I'm from Long Island. My high school wasn't the best at lacrosse. I was definitely, the best player on the field, and you get to college and you're quickly not the best player on the field. So it's an adjustment, but it makes you, the way I approached it was, it made you hungry. I think I thrive in competitive atmospheres, and it kind of pushed me to, hey, I want to be better than this guy. Hey, I want to be better than this guy. But in the same time, it's interesting because you're also wishing nothing but the best for these guys, right? So you're competing against these guys every day, day in and day out. You want to be better than these guys, and you want to succeed, but at the same time, these are your teammates, these are your brothers, and you have to be. You quickly learn what selfless, like being selfless, is. So I would say that it taught me, it kind of drove my competitiveness when you go into a place where you're not the best player anymore. But, as we talked about before, these guys quickly become your brothers, and you're like,
Right.
you know, I want nothing but the best for this guy. So it's definitely a balancing act.
It's very humbling, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very humbling. Yep.
Very, very humbling. So you're still in school, you're kicking butt playing college lacrosse, having a good time. How did you start to prepare, or when did you start to prepare for life? Hey, listen, I got a year left, maybe 2 years
Yeah.
left, and I got to start getting myself ready for after college, after sports. How did you prepare for that? Mentally, or as well as academically or professionally. So when you're done with school, I got a game plan.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, so playing lacrosse, of course, I knew I wasn't going to one, play professionally, or two, make a career out of my lacrosse ability. So I knew, early on that the corporate world was going to eventually call my name. Had internships every summer, but I really don't think it was until my junior summer where I started to realize, like, all right, you got to take this. You kind of got to get the foot on the gas a little bit. It's interesting. It's an interesting transition. One, it's your first lick of adulthood, kind of around that time. So, the internships always help. But it's a scary transition. It really is a scary transition, especially, as a, 21-year-old, beginning to, mold your life into what you think you want to do for the rest of your career. It is scary. It's definitely scary.
Life creeps up on you
Real fast, really fast.
real fast.
Yep.
So did you have a clear path? Once you figure out, hey man, I'm going to go corporate, I'm going to go whatever profession you want to pursue.
Sure.
When did you have that clear path? Hey, this is the direction I'm going to go.
Yeah. So, my dad's a physical therapist. So working in healthcare was something, maybe from a young age, I was like, I want to do what my dad does. And, as I got older, I realized I didn't want to do what my dad does.
Don't tell him
Always,
that.
yeah, exactly. Oh, he knows. Um, you know, was always kind of around, I want to say, like, business growing up. Caddied the summers in high school. A lot of the guys I caddied for were business or finance guys, and was always, picking their brains about what they did, how they got to where they were. And, the common theme, at least where I was caddying, was they were in business. So, when it was the time to kind of get internships, that was something, that caught my attention. So, had an internship doing wealth management, thought that was interesting for a little bit. Um, Worked at a startup for a little bit. I thought, maybe I want to be one of the first guys, boots on ground, and grow something. Then I pivoted to medical device sales, and I was like, maybe I do want to go in healthcare, but maybe, from a more sales perspective. So, I was all over the place, but that was, that's something I preach is, try it all. You don't have to figure it out from the rip. Try it all. That's the only way you're going to figure out what what you like, what you don't like, what you want to do. So, eventually ended up, getting an internship in investment banking, and, kind of landed on that, and gratefully got a job in that afterwards. But, it wasn't a straight path for sure.
Now, your internships, were they all mostly in the summer?
Yeah. All the summer. Never really had time to do anything in school. So you had to fit it in during the summer.
Yeah, you're on the go, almost all the
Yeah.
time while you're in college. And that's what, a lot of people don't understand, is that you're in college, I don't know, 8 to 10 hours a week,
Sure.
and then you're spending 30, maybe 40 hours a week in your sport,
Yeah.
between practice, between games, between travel, between team meetings, between workouts, between whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that's a lot to balance.
Yeah. You
So
definitely didn't have time to to work either. So I was like, I better get an internship and make some money this summer, so I have some money to rely on during the
Yeah.
year.
You need some fun money.
There you go.
So looking at all that, I'm going to use one word,
Yeah,
right? And it's the word burnout.
yeah,
Did you, from injuries to playing to school, academics, internships, you know, was there ever a point where like, I'm just burned out, man.
yeah,
I can't take this anymore. I need a break.
yeah. I will say that probably my last year at school. So my senior year was COVID. Um, so that definitely put a damper on a senior year. When the season gets canceled, the entire world obviously gets canceled. So that was tough, and coming back, it wasn't the same. Unfortunately, we were couldn't use the locker room, doing laundry at home, lifting groups were separated, we were wearing masks. So it was, it was a little tough, it was a little tough. It wasn't the same. But at the same time, Jeff, I kind of realized that it was almost it was a realization that, I was more than a lacrosse player. What kind of made me tick was was the competitiveness. I was a competitor at heart, and for a long time my outlet was lacrosse. But as my lacrosse career winded down, and I started seeing you know, you know what else there was out there, and out there in terms of what's to come. It was, hey, I can find other outlets of competitiveness. And again, I always say I'm so grateful for the game of lacrosse and all that it gave me. But you find different outlets, you know so it's just, at the end, it wasn't so much of a burnout, rather than I was watching lacrosse fade into the sunset,
Yeah.
and I was okay letting it go.
It was almost like reality.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Reality's kicking in, young man,
Yep. Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
hard.
Yeah.
So injury, I'm gonna, a simple question, a simple answer is you're gonna say injuries, but let's put injuries aside.
Sure.
What do you think was your biggest challenge? So if while you were in school for 5 years, your biggest challenge or source of stress that you had, but if outside of the injury, that's probably the biggest one.
Sure.
If that never happened, what do you think would be the biggest challenge or source of stress you faced in your 5 years?
Yeah. I think a big challenge was learning how to separate athletics and the rest of your life. Um, Athletics becomes such a big part of your everyday, right? I mean, you're couple hours a day, really, whether it's film, lifts, practice, it consumes a lot of your day. And at times, you're not always going to have the best lift, right? You're not always going to have the best practice. You might get grilled in the film session for doing
Mm.
a couple of things wrong. So it was really trying to learn about, I'll say, separation of church and state. Once you walk off that field, it's very easy to carry things with you, which can impact, the rest of your day as a regular student, as a regular person. So, it was learning how to, leave the good and the bad on the field, and leave the good and the bad off the field. I found that was very difficult at first. I have, a bad practice, I might be bummed out when I get home, and, my academics might slip, or vice versa. I don't do as well as I want to do on a test. And because of that, I carried it onto the field, and, had a bad practice. So, it was learning how to separate the two, and kind of, leave the good and the bad, per se, in each corner.
I like to call that boxing it out.
Sure.
And How,
Absolutely.
how do you put that in a box, put the lid on it, and leave it over there for a while?
Sure.
And then the next thing, okay, open up the box, deal with it, but then
Yeah.
put this in a box and leave that over there for a while.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do.
That's very hard to do.
So look, here's my question on that for you, and this is a collegiate thing, is the college and university that you went to, what kind of resources were there for you as an athlete, student athlete? Hey, if you needed to talk to somebody
Yeah.
outside of your coach, outside of your teammates, was there a resource that you were able to go to, utilize, and get some help with? So
Sure.
outside of the team and the coaches?
Sure. Yeah. So, being a small small school had its perks in that, I think our mental health resources were phenomenal. For me personally, I always, got my if I needed to talk to someone, I went to my buddies. I always felt that they were in my corner. We could always share anything with them. But, I know a lot of guys on the team that, had utilized our mental health resources. So they were pretty available when guys needed it. So it was honestly a great resource our college had.
That's great.
Yeah,
So, well, let's talk about that for a second. If I go backwards in time,
sure.
before you were even a thought, before your parents were even married,
Sure.
way, way back when your dad was playing,
Yeah,
right? Mental health was pushed under the rug.
sure. Absolutely.
Suck it up,
Yeah,
get out there, don't worry about it.
yeah,
Tomorrow's another day. Don't be such a wimp. I can go on and on.
sure.
So how is it today in today's world with the current athlete? Is it are they more comfortable? Are they more expressive? Are they more willing to say, hey, listen, man, I got a problem? Because we
Sure.
spend so much time on our muscles, right?
Yeah,
And our plays and do it again, do it again, do it again. Where the strongest muscle in our body is our brain.
yeah,
And we don't spend any time on that.
yeah,
So talk about that a little bit.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I was, kind of in the same boat. Growing up, wasn't really, either aware of mental health or really didn't, deal with it, experience it until kind of, I got to college. And, it's when you start getting real world problems or real life problems, mental health definitely plays a part, and it's an absolute real thing. Dealt with it in college, still deal with it. It's something that's very real, but I think has, in the last couple of years has had a greater spotlight on it, and not such a negative spotlight at the same time. I think that it's more accepted and widely known now, which is comforting. When you know there's other people out there going through the same thing and feeling the same way that you are. It's a comforting feeling. It's a comforting feeling knowing that you're not alone.
So knowing what you know now about the
Sure.
schools and the resources, is there anything the schools that you hey, listen, they should think about doing this. They
Yeah.
should think about providing this to the athletes. What do
Sure.
you think of the schools should do today?
I thought one of the coolest things was we didn't have it, but I saw a couple institutions have sports psychologists, which I think is so fascinating. Mental health counselors, no knock on them, they're absolutely fantastic. But sometimes it is difficult to relate to a student athlete when maybe their problems are coming from sports. So having a dedicated sports psychologist who's aware, familiar with athletics, familiar with, maybe the mental health challenges, student athletes face versus, a regular student, having that knowledge, that ability to relate, I think is invaluable, and probably would be, a great addition to, any college or university.
Yeah, I just did a podcast a couple of weeks ago with a woman named Haley Perkins,
Sure.
and she played at my school softball.
Okay.
So I'm proud to say that University
Yeah.
of Maine, she played softball up there,
Yeah.
and she was really good. But then she went on to get her degree in therapy, and she's now the sports therapist
That's
at
awesome.
my school.
That's
So
great.
she knows both sides of the game. Like, hey,
Yeah.
here's the physicality and the mentally as an athlete, but
Yeah.
now as a professional, she can help these young men and women about
Sure.
in the areas that they need focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. She's been in their shoes. So
Oh yeah.
definitely can relate. Yep. That's awesome.
So football, lacrosse is over, right? School is over. You've been out for a couple of years. How do you deal with pressure today? Like, how do you deal with it? You wake up in the morning, you got a high pressure job. How,
Sure.
how do you deal with the pressures of today professionally?
Yeah, no, it's definitely in a high pressure job. Every day doesn't it feels like at times there's no breather, but it's just again, I think it's just kind of taking like one thing at a time. It's very easy to get overwhelmed, but there's so many things that I gained from athletics that have helped me transition into, the working world and being able to perform in high pressure situations. One of the things that, I pride myself in it is organization and time management. And I think that by staying organized, knowing what needs to get done by when, and kind of, having, always having a priority list, or knowing what needs to get done has helped me kind of avoid time crunches or last minute fire drills type things. So I think it's about staying organized and knowing what to prioritize. Now, with that said, you're going to have fire drills pop up, right? You're gonna have last minute deadlines, or or a client that's asking for X, Y, and Z. So you're going to be dealing with that. But I think it's just kind of, I find myself throughout the day, taking deep breaths, just kind of relaxing, trying to stay present, stay in the moment. That's helped me kind of deal with, maybe rapid fire situations, I'll say.
And I love what you said before is you go back, hey, listen, I get to do this. I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get to, because you're putting yourself in that pressure situation. No one's
Sure. Sure.
making you do it. No one
Yeah.
forced you to take that job, but
Yeah.
you get to do that,
Yeah.
and what's the old saying? Pressure creates diamonds.
Yeah. Yeah. Pressure
I
creates
mean,
diamonds. Yeah. No. Yeah. That's a great point. It just kind
you
of,
know, and,
I
and
see all the time on forums or whatnot of, college kids, hey, how do I break into investment banking? What do I need to get there type thing? And kind of just, reflecting on that and saying, man, I got into investment banking. I'm here, I'm doing it type thing. It also helps, kind of, remind me that, not everyone gets to do this, and it's a hard field to get into, and just kind of staying grateful throughout that, which is also
yep.
why at the same time, I'm always, open and willing to talking to, college, any kids in college, really, because when I was going through the recruiting process, that was the best feeling when, I reached out, cold message on LinkedIn to someone, in a field I wanted to get into, and then, complete stranger, would take 15 minutes out of their day to speak to me, give me advice, put me in contact with the right people. That was the best feeling. And I think something that helped me get here today. So, back to another one of your questions of, hey, as a leader, how do you know what to say to guys? It's putting yourself in their shoes. And I still try to do that to this day. Hey, I was there at one point. What would I want this person to say? And, that's why, I'm always willing to, definitely a busy guy, but always have 15 minutes to carve out to, for anyone who wants some advice or wants to talk, because I was there too. So
Well, I hope everybody listens and hears that. Reach out to
yeah.
him. Get some advice from this young man.
Yeah. Jeff will link my email
Yeah.
in the description.
So if you could go backwards in time, Brandon, right,
Yeah.
and change anything about your athletic career, would
Sure.
it be playing? Would it be school? Would it be anything? If you can go back and change anything, what would you change?
Man, what would I change? I said before that, I left with no regrets, but there are definitely things, you know, I would probably I would probably try to have gotten more reps before and after practice. Um, And maybe that's because I miss the sport, and now I'd give anything to be back out there, or get in some extra reps. But that was huge. I mean, just think about it. If you got to practice 15 minutes earlier, and shot 30 more balls, or hit the wall for 50 more times righty and lefty, compounding that goes a long way. Goes a really long way. So probably getting an
More
extra reps
reps.
would have been something.
And but
Maybe stretching a little bit more too, because I had some lingering hamstring and
all
groin
right,
problems that maybe could have gone out the window if I found time to stretch a little bit more. So
the old
stretching
hammy,
awareness. Yeah, the old hammy
the old hammy.
was one I couldn't get away from.
So identity today. Tell everybody about I think your my personal opinion is college athletes, their athletic career is their foundation of
Sure.
who they
Yeah.
become, not who they
Yeah.
are, but who they become.
Yeah.
Talk to people about, what is your identity today? If
Yeah.
someone say, listen, like, who are you? What is your identity as a person now?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. And, I think that for me, I never really viewed myself as just a lacrosse player. Like, I knew that I knew and accepted that there was life outside of lacrosse, and kind of early on accepted, of course, that I wasn't going to be doing this for the rest of my life. So I better have an identity other than just lacrosse player. So, you know, through that, came other hobbies, which kind of, was a great, kind of breath of fresh air throughout college. So, I picked up golf in college. You know, was always an avid lifter, so really enjoyed lifting. So, I always felt that I wasn't very one dimensional in college, that really, lacrosse never defined me completely. So I think through that, I was able to find other hobbies, things that I enjoyed doing, learning new things that kind of shaped me into who I was then, and, made that transition after college a little bit easier.
How good of a golfer are you now?
I'm a 10 handicap now. I get down to the single digits in the summer, and
All
then,
right.
in the off season goes back up. So I think if I spent a little bit more time, from 100 yards and in, and maybe on the putting green, that number would go down a little bit further. But
All
yeah,
right. Have you played with Mr. Todd?
I have played with Mr. Todd. Yep, I have played with Mr. Todd.
How bad is he?
Mr. Todd is a great time on the golf course,
I
and I
bet you.
always enjoy his company. That's all I'll say.
Have you been to his country club?
Having been up in Jersey, we were fortunate enough to have one down in college as well, that they joined when they bought the beach house in New Smyrna. So would play there with him, but never been up
All
in
right.
Jersey at Rockseticus. So definitely have
Me,
to.
me neither. He hasn't invited me either.
He hasn't. Okay, so
And
I'll definitely way down on the list then.
well, I keep inviting myself. You know, and he's like, okay, but he knows I don't play golf, so he doesn't. I
Sure,
don't think he wants me to go.
sure,
But another question: You're 5 years at school.
yeah.
What are you most thankful for?
Immediately off the bat, it's the guys, it's the friends I made. Yeah, you mentioned before, like, Mr. Todd is a guy that, you take a bullet for, and I can confidently say that, I've created, long lasting, friendships and bonds with these guys. I can't wait till, the day of my wedding, where I'm looking to the left, and, it's the guys I was at practice with, at lifts with. These are my best friends. These are my guys for life. It's an adjustment, certainly after college, when you're with these guys day in and day out, and then you're all spread out throughout other cities. But, one of, like, the best things, I've ever had someone say to me was, wow, you guys do such a good job of seeing each other. You guys are always on trips with one another. And, it's because that, these are my guys for life. And, a little bit different now. It looks a little bit different when, maybe just looking at it, my best bud through a phone screen. I only see him, a handful of times over the year. But, the these guys are my ride or die. They're my guys for life. And, I'll be, thankful forever that, Rollins, and especially the game of lacrosse, gave me such great friends, that I'll hopefully have for the rest of my life.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, listen, I've asked you a ton of questions,
sure,
and the time is flying by, which is it's great when we have some fun.
sure.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you yet that you think the listeners should know?
I don't know about anything that you haven't asked me, but, I'd like to flip the question around to you. Um, you know, what would you tell, someone my age, or yourself, as a 26-year-old, something that you know now that maybe you wish you knew back then?
Oh man, you flipped it on me. That's a good one. Here's a couple. It's a great question for me, and there's a couple of answers. One is just never quit.
Yeah,
Never quit, never give up. But the one thing is believe. You got to believe in yourself, and I think athletics helps you believe in yourself as you continue to perform and succeed at
Yeah.
levels that you just never thought you could,
Yep.
because your coaches are there to push you.
Sure.
Your coaches are there to guide you. Your coaches are there to help you achieve things that they see in you that you might not see or believe yet. So my thought there, my answer is believe in yourself, believe in who you are, believe in what you can accomplish and do, and never quit, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how much pain you're in, because the injuries, man, they're painful, right?
Sure.
And sometimes you take those hits. Never ever give up, never quit. Always focus on, and I love what you said, and I'm going to use your line. Always focus on what you get to do.
Yeah.
Right. And remember, and you've heard this before, and when I heard this a gazillion years ago, I'm like, holy crap, this is really important. Is pressure, we said, makes diamonds,
Yeah.
but pressure is a privilege.
Yeah.
Your coaches, your parents, your bosses, your whoever you report to, when they see you perform under pressure,
Yeah.
they will give you more privileges.
Yeah.
They want you on that field. They want you in that boardroom. They want you on that phone. They want you in front of people if you can perform under pressure.
Yeah.
But you never perform under pressure unless you believe in yourself.
Yeah.
So that's a long-winded answer, to that question, but that's what I would say to any young athlete today is you got to believe, man.
Yep. No, that's awesome. That's a great point. And off of that, it kind of always reminds me, there's something my dad always told me from a young age, is that the worst thing in life is wasted potential. You got one go at this thing, so you kind of have to live every day to the most. So that kind of always lives in the back of my head. There's definitely days where I want to snooze my alarm, but it's back to that, hey, I get to do this thing today. So let's get up and get after it. So
Yeah.
that's a great point. I think they're right there side by side.
Yeah. And, no one's ever died from pressure.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're gonna sooner or later it's gonna end, and you're gonna be sitting back at your house and whoo, it's over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just take advantage of it, live it, learn from it, and grow from it.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Well, Brandon, this has been great. I really appreciate the fact that you took the time out of your day to be on this show to help other college athletes who are out there now dealing with certain situations that they feel like they're all alone by themselves sometimes. Or high school athletes who are thinking about, hey, do I want to play the next level? Should I play at the next level? Where should I play?
Yeah.
And then you got the people coming out of college, athletes that are coming out of college, ending their sport for the last time. And what's that transition like? It's not easy because, I always say athletes die twice. The first is when they stop playing their game, they die. They literally die, but they still live through it.
Yep.
But then we leave the face of the earth somewhere along the line in the future.
Sure.
Yeah. So great experience. Again, I appreciate you love to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to be back.
Time, and we're having some fun here. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
You got it.
Yep.